Hey everyone, welcome to the third roundtable discussion for season 2 of the Adonis Project. In this episode, we go over the progress and protocols of the pre-prep cut. Remember, for this competition season, we had the guys doing a initial cut for 8 weeks, then hold steady for the month of December, and then back to dieting in January before we hit spring shows. So in this episode, they would have just finished their pre-prep cut and then just about to go into their maintenance phase for the holiday season. So they give some perspectives into how the first phase went and then what they think is going to happen during the maintenance phase and any sort of insights they have at this point in the journey. So sit back, relax, and remember, if you're not subscribed, if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and feel free to leave a comment. That would really help us out. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode and we'll see you inside. All right, everyone. Welcome to another roundtable discussion here. We have Munene and Steve back, and we are going to touch on what is going on with the Adonis Project right now. So if you listen to the other episodes, we had episode 1, other episodes of the roundtable discussion. We have a few other episodes of vlogs and stuff, but the roundtable discussions, in the first one, we had just talked about like going into prep, kind of where we're at, right? Episode 2, we covered the first month, and then in this episode, and again, just specifically to the roundtable, episode 3, technically of just the roundtable, we're going to go over where we're at so far, being like 8 weeks into the process now. I guess almost exactly 8 weeks, just a little bit, a couple of days over 8 weeks, right? Because we started our fat loss phases in October 2nd. So now it's December 4th at the time we are recording this. So we're going to give you a good run through of what has been happening in each of the journeys, give a little bit of update where we're sitting. First, let's just go around the table and let's say like one thing new that happened to us in the past a little bit that we want to share since the last roundtable episode. I'll go left to right here. So Steve, now you're on the left this time. So
sounds good. Something new in the last month. Well, I guess probably Parris, you and I kind of chatted a little bit before we started recording. It's just I've hit the point now where workouts have become hard. Like over this last week, I've noticed that it's hard to put extra plates on. It's hard to do that extra rep. Just in the last week, I found that the caloric deficit has kind of hit me in the. I don't want to say in a negative way, but it's certainly made it harder to push those workouts as effectively as we did. I was coming into the last podcast with full steam, and now I feel like that steam is running out a little bit in the workouts.
Yeah. Well, it definitely makes sense. I mean, we're at that point where we've taken quite a bit of percentage of your overall body weight off too. And also we've extended the training block a little bit longer before having like a deload week, which is essentially just bringing down volume intensity. But like this is your last week. This is perfect timing because this is your last week before you go into your maintenance phase. So you'll have like a few weeks at eating more food, and we're running an intro week, which is like a deload week for the first week of your next training phase. So it's perfect timing because right as that fatigue and diet fatigue is hitting you, it's like boom, a little bit of a break from like harder training, and then also more food for a week, and then a few weeks after that as well. So it's like that perfect refresh button. So I think it's good timing. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. It's funny. As long as we've been training, we go through the mesocycles. It's usually 6 or 7 weeks. And I'm flying through. Everything's good. The first couple you get into the rhythm, and then you just kind of like you're on cruise control for 3 weeks, and everything's going fine. And you're like, I don't need a deload week. And all of a sudden, the week before the deload week, your body goes, it's time for a break. And there's no shift, there's no mental shift. Like most of the time, there's no diet shift. This one, there's been a bit of a just the calories we haven't changed anything. We've just slowly kept them low. But the body tells you when it needs a change, it needs a break. And I definitely found after this week, because I'm like, maybe it was 2 weeks ago I had some hard shifts at work. So yeah, I thought maybe it was just, trying to recover and everything. But no, it's my body says it is time. Let's get through one more week and then we'll change it up again. So definitely perfect timing.
100%.
Respect the hustle, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Respect the hustle. That's all I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your job stuff in a sec, Steve, and also like about the maintenance phase and everything and whatever. But I want to ask the same question first to Munene before I get like way sidetracked of like anything anything new in the past month that you want to share, like life wise or like fitness wise.
Yeah, so aside from just like losing 15 pounds and seeing the veins and stuff, which is cool, I'd say it's definitely self-awareness. Actually, I consider myself someone who is self-aware, but this has taken it to a whole new level, because in terms of a fat loss phase, I'm viewing it as more than that. It's not just a regular fat loss phase, it's a pre-preparation cut. And so I guess framing it in that light has really shown me more of my habits, some that I never knew I had, whether that be good or bad, and how I can navigate those and make changes in the right direction. So the level of self-awareness I've gained just within these 2 months has been like unfathomable. Like, it's just insane how much I can have it like an introspection and realize, oh, I'm doing this, or I'm doing this, or I can actually do this for longer than I thought, or I'm actually capable of this, or I probably shouldn't be doing this, and I didn't realize that this was eating away 30 minutes of my time in a day, and I don't even realize it. So I'd say that's been the biggest takeaway, aside from losing 15 pounds. Yeah,
I love that, man. And we will touch on like progress in terms of physique progress as well, definitely more in detail. But I like that you said that, because if you remember in the first roundtable discussion we had, that was one of the things you wanted to get out of this journey too, right? And we had talked about it even before starting prep. I'm like, hey, listen, like, hey, the physique changes are awesome, and pushing yourself and seeing your physique look a certain way is pretty damn cool. But the growth as a person and that self-awareness that you're mentioning that you get is like the real takeaway from prep. And just imagine like at the end stages in prep, how much even more you get out of it. And then doing multiple preps, it's like you just seriously level up, and like you're just super in tune with your needs as a person, right?
What about you, dude? What if we pose the question to you?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Me, you know what? I'm going to say something interestingly. I'm actually going to say my quads have actually improved in terms of like, I think like my rectus femoris and like the definition I'm seeing in my quads. I actually think just because of the difference in the stimulus that I've had with a different style training and like different type of leg training that I've done for a while, I actually think I made some progress in my quads. So that's something like out of the box that I wasn't expecting, being in a deficit, but just because I think the stimulus was so new to me, and I've been pushing legs like pretty hard, and some of the intensity techniques like partials and stuff, and just the way I'm training legs right now is different. So that
and those damn sissy squats. It's those sissy squats too. That was the finisher move there. Yeah, I think all three of us are doing them right now. And
I just programmed for Munene as well. So
oh, welcome to the club then.
There we go.
At least I didn't program to failure and then partials like I have. That's
no, that's just
next
you.
level, man.
I literally finished my last rep, and the partials are like me essentially just then kneeling on the ground, because like the partials, you're standing, so your partials are like you're done and you can't stand up, so you just kneel. I just literally collapse to the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
We're laughing now, Steve.
And then I have to get out of the basement when I finish those, so I'm like all Bambi legs walking out of the basement gym, just trying to just after a set of those.
I had to hit a leg session with our client Rafa the other day, and he like he was loving those. He's like, this is the most fun but like horrible thing I've ever done, pretty much. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome, guys. Okay, cool. So I like that. That was kind of cool, because like just a little bit of kind of some stuff that happened a little bit, but I do want to dive more specifically into the progress like up until now, and especially in the last month that we've kind of got. So like first things first, in terms of like protocol wise, like how has that changed, if anything, and then what's going on with the physique since then? Steve first, I guess.
Well, protocol, like we've kept it pretty simple. You set my macros at October 2nd, and we haven't touched them. So we've just been rolling with it. I'd like to think that things have been going pretty well with that. It has been very robotic. I think we touched a bit about it last time, and I'm like, the majority of my day is all planned out, is all sorted. My meal prep's easy. I know I don't need to think as much. I know, I haven't had my protein oatmeal today, so here we go. So protocol, like I think it's been very efficient. Now there's been a couple more cookies in the house lately, but I have been putting them into the putting them in. But in terms of the overall structure, we just touched on it earlier. Like we're at the end of the mesocycle, so we haven't touched anything. We haven't adjusted the weight, the weight splits. We haven't touched the meals. So we've just been, or the macros, we've just been kind of cruising along. And then in terms of physique, so I weighed in this morning at about 168.8. So I've had a couple of those down just under 169. Like we stalled a little bit at that 169, 170 mark. For it felt like a week or so. It wasn't really dropping, but yeah, we're kind of inching down now in the last week. So hopefully in this week I can maybe get a 167, and that was the goal. Getting down into the 167, 168 range was the goal for the end of this. And it still puts me, well, I'm still 10 pounds lighter than I was last time when I started. So the official one. So that's been good. Everything's just, we're just trusting the process at this point. And physique wise, like I've noticed, it's funny because we were looking at Munene's super pictures the other day, and your bat wings there. But like I've started to notice more shape. Like I've started to notice more of a triangular shape to my physique. My back feels still pretty full, like compared to what I expected after losing 10, 15, almost 15 pounds, I guess, for 13 pounds. I still have some pretty good shape. And just as like a little side bonus, I was at work the other day, and my partner, he's like, "Man, look at your quads." He's like, "You're not supposed to have those. Look at you." And he's, he does all sorts of leg work, and he's so he was pretty impressed. I'm like, "Hey, I guess they're kicking in there somewhere." Just same thing, just taking off a little bit of that weight and just kind of revealing a few things. So yeah, I've been pretty happy so far.
I love it. I think like the pre-prep diet, and we'll touch on this for Munene too, but it went exactly as predicted. Like I think for Steve, I said, hey, let's take off 10 to 12 on you. I said for Munene, let's take off 12 to 15, and we'll get to this in a second, but like pretty much exactly happened. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. And yeah, I'm supposed to end around 176, and guess what? I weighed in 176. Like, hey, cool stuff happens when like everything's calculated and on point. So I think it's just awesome. Nothing ever happens exactly as smooth as we want to, like over time. Like things always happen. We get sick, we get life stuff happens, or things just don't move in the right direction. But like when it happens, you got to be grateful and just say, hey, things are going smooth, like this is great. And I think for Steve, as you mentioned, like that density is still there. Like all that density that we had built, spent some time building in the building phase, like it's keeping, yeah. And we're seeing the new gains.
Yeah, I definitely like. I don't have the big huge pumps that we did when we had the like in the full gaining phase and everything, but I definitely feel solid. Like I did progress pictures this morning for you, Parris. They'll come in the email check-in tonight. But looking at them, like everything that we've wanted to work on is still there. It's still dense, and it still feels like it looks like it feels like there's more than last time, where it was just slowly pulling fat away. I feel like we're unveiling what I'm hoping is going to be a pretty amazing physique come May. So,
oh yeah,
one step at
a time. You will be the most shredded dad I've ever seen.
I got to rock that masters category, right?
100%, man. I'm super excited. I've never lost my excitement at any point during this prep. I've always maintained the same level of excitedness.
Oh
yeah. Hey, sometimes the low days get to me, and I'm like, oh, I still got like 4 hours of work, and I am pooped, or like, oh, it's leg day, and I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted. But like the baseline excitement to see not only like where my physique gets to, but I'm even more excited to see where you guys get to be honest. Like I don't like, seriously, if I like, that's just, it's super cool to see these physique changes, man. Like you guys are just crushing it, man. So in between this, before I chat with Munene here, like, you guys are just freaking crushing it, man. Like I'm very inspired, and it's just freaking awesome. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. But Munene, how about you? Protocol and physique changes.
Yeah, protocol. We started at 2,745 calories. And I think I touched on this in the last video where we were still losing at a good rate, but we thought we'd speed things up because we're ahead of schedule anyways. So we made an adjustment to 2,620. And I've been there for the past, maybe, let's say, 6 weeks? Around 6 weeks, I've stuck at those calories. Body weight's dropping like crazy, retaining muscle mass, retaining strength, if not increasing strength on some movements too, especially my legs, because technique is dialed in. Some of the movements are new to me as well, so the novel stimulus is like, I'm not going to get into that science, but anyways, yeah, it's like, leg strength is there, pulling strength is retained, a bit of a decline in pushing strength, which is always the first to decline in a deficit. But yeah, I'm loving it. Today was a new low weigh-in of 219 from 235. So that's good for me. I feel great, no energy losses. I'm not hungry because I'm eating good foods. I actually feel quite alert on these foods, especially I think it's the nutrient density of the food choices. They're extremely nutrient dense, and so yeah, I've been loving it. Also, I'd say my delts, I'm starting to see them like come in and the arm fat go. So I'm like, oh, this is like, I was doing curls in the mirror and I saw like the veins and I was like, do I have like a bruise or something? What's that? Like, I actually got concerned because I didn't know what it was. And then I go close to the mirror and I'm like, oh, they're veins, like a spider web kind of thing. I was like, damn. Like,
that's new. That's
yeah,
I've never seen you have that before since I've known you.
Yeah, I was like, okay, interesting. So physique changes there. Face for sure, back, and yeah, starting to see the progress from the gaining phase. We're displaying that now, so that's really cool, I'd say.
Yeah, man. I that's why I love at this point. Like, once you have a couple good productive months of fat loss on you, now it's, you start to see like, oh, those are the changes that I was working on when I was in a building phase. And you just got to trust that when you're in a building phase, because you actually start to end up just like looking worse for a little bit when you're in a building phase. You're like, okay, I'm getting stronger, and like my shirts are tighter on the sleeves, but like I kind of look like crap with my shirt off. Excuse my French. And then you're like, but I'm just going to trust that I'm putting on muscle because I know I'm doing the right things. And then when you take off that first chunk of body weight, you're like, okay, we did something.
There it is. Yeah, there it is.
It's like you're trusting the process. Exactly. It's like you embrace it because you know that when you do cut, it's going to be worthwhile. Like, the progress is definitely going to be worth it. And so, yeah, it's been awesome, man. It's crazy what can happen when you adhere to things, right? With the right guidance and adherence, those two factors, right protocol, adhere to it, it's like changes happen. So it's good to see that we're all in a good place.
100%. Adherence is everything, man. And I think this is cool too, because now you have your diet break for like a full month of eating a little bit more, right? And what we did was we did give you some good flexibility in here too. So kind of like for Steve, I gave him kind of like a protein and calorie range. For you is similar as well, but with some like minimums too, right? We said, hey, as long as we said, hey, here's a protein range or whatever, but I don't want you falling below these minimums in carbs and fats, and then just fall within this range of calories, relatively flexible. And like, we have that. So just including that flexibility, and then also making the click of like, hey, I'm still able to maintain at this range with a little more flexibility. And I don't need to stress out so much about like, maybe a lot of people think they might have to hit the macros to the gram all the time, even in a maintenance phase. But like, realistically, the big moving blocks are what really matters. And at this stage in the game, like, we don't need to be hitting macros always to the exact gram in this maintenance phase. It's like, hey, here's this calorie range. Here are the minimums for protein, fats, and carbs, and eat as you wish, kind of thing. And then you end up gravitating towards your preferences and what works with your body anyways, right? Like, I typically gravitate to just higher carbs in general. That's just me. Some people like higher fats, and Munene, you're maybe slightly higher carb, maybe a balance of both, I would say. Yeah.
No, you're so right. It's funny too, because it's like, And it's good. I like that approach because our maintenance is within a range anyways. It's not like one fixed number. It's like it's within a range. So as long as we're within that range, we're good to Gucci. I mean, good to go. Look at me using this kiddo slang. We're good to go.
You are a kid. You're you're a millennial. You can say these things.
Oh man,
funny.
I'm
That
telling
is
you.
funny.
Oh, that's funny.
You know what? I'm excited though, because like here's the thing. I've never ran as focused of a fat loss phase with a calculated break for this long in between. I've done like weeks at maintenance with a deload or like 4-day diet breaks or like refeeds, obviously, but I've never pre-programmed. Like for me, I'll have 6 weeks at maintenance in between like fat loss phases, right? I've never done that. And I've never seen, if I still stay with the same amount of calculation and like precision adherence, like I've never had that time of like, what happens to my body when I come feed it a little bit more when I'm, you know what I mean, in a calculated way. So I'm very curious to see. I feel like I might even recomp a little bit, once to bring the food up. And the good thing is, let's say like I've lost maybe 1 or 2 reps off my leg press and then my like flat dumbbell press. I would say those are the only lifts that I haven't improved on and that I've lost like a rep or 2. However, I'm very curious to see once I put in a little bit more food in, and I do have a deload as well and drop some fatigue, if I'm able to then make those progressions back when I'm in the maintenance phase. And same thing for you guys too, make those progressions back and maybe even improve past where I started prep at. And now I'm at a leaner physique and a much less body weight, but pushing more weight or more reps of the same weight. So it's like, I'm just curious. I don't know if that's I postulate probably happen. Like, what do you guys think about that?
Oh, probably. I mean, everyone's got their movement that struggles, right? Like I noticed last time that once we started digging in, my squats, they were the first one to go. Munene, you just said the pressing motions, like everybody's got something. Like my presses have been consistent. They haven't improved much over the last couple of weeks, but they've been consistent, and it's so day dependent. I've found, this week I did, an extra rep on the dumbbell press. Last week I didn't. And I find mine's just so kind of day dependent, but hitting, getting a few extra calories in for that little extended period of time. You're right. Just maybe pick up a little of that slack, right? You're not going to struggle on some of those movements, and maybe the next check-in, it'll be the next roundtable will be like, oh man, I didn't expect a PR in the middle of a fat loss kind of event. So yeah, maybe you'll get something back, even if it's just those lost 2 reps, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I agree. Because then you also you have more energy in your system, right? And then you have more energy to fuel muscular contractions too. So it's like there's so many variables, as you said. It's something, it's like you said, you postulate, you think it would happen, and I don't see why the possibility of it not happening. I don't see why it wouldn't. So I could definitely see that occurring in all of us. Just from a mental aspect too, when you have more food, that psychological element to training where you have more food and you feel better, you're more amped up for your sessions, you have more motivation going into those sessions, and you're like, oh yeah, you feel good subconsciously. And then if you feel good, your training sessions more likely to be better because you push yourself harder. It's like those variables too, combined with the physiological variables of having more food in your system and getting those adaptations back. Yeah, those elements together, I don't see why we shouldn't, those changes shouldn't happen if they do.
I'm really happy you mentioned that, because there's such a psychological factor of like knowing that you're in a well-fed state going into training. And that's why I always say training in a deficit is a skill. I mentioned this in other podcasts too, because people that have never ran a fat loss phase and like have never gotten really lean before, like training in a deficit is completely different than training in a surplus. And especially once you start getting lean, right? And if you know how that feels like, then you might lose a lot more performance in your first like extended fat loss phase than you would in like your 6th extended fat loss phase, right? Like when my first couple fat loss phases where I got like relatively lean, my performance really dropped off a cliff, I would say, right? But now like I'm holding on to my numbers pretty well, and the last prep I would say would hold on to numbers like decently well too. But that's only because I have experience in like developing the skill of training in deficit, and you kind of know how to manipulate things and know how to like click in your psychology too of like, hey, don't be a little wuss on this set of leg press, even though you're on low food, right?
Yeah, I've definitely been impressed by how I've been able to maintain. Because last year I dropped like my all of my results dropped off the map because that was my first foray into the extended fat loss, and we were being relatively aggressive because we had we had the time crunch. But yeah, I found like week to week the workouts were just getting harder, and it's not even just that it was harder to get into the gym, it was harder to complete that workout. So the energy by that fifth exercise, that sixth exercise, was really falling off the map. Like I had enough to get going. I was excited. I'm in the gym, and then the first two exercises are good. The third exercise a little bit struggled, and I find up until this last week, I've still had that energy through the whole workout, and yeah, still been able to maintain. I put a couple of good numbers up earlier on in the phase, and this it's just this last week or so just been holding on, but definitely a big difference than last time.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
challenging the notion. It's like that notion where, oh, I'm in a deficit, so I'm going to lose muscle and all my strength is going to go from an extremely high point to an extremely low point. It's like, no. When you tell yourself that, it will happen because you're manifesting it. You go into your training sessions and you expect to lose strength, so you underperform. And it's not the case. You don't have to lose muscle in a deficit. You don't have to lose absurd amounts of strength. And if anything, a lot of those strength adaptations you do lose, some of them are not necessarily due to muscle loss, or like due to they could be neurological too.
Yeah.
If you have a new movement pattern, it could be your nervous system and coordinating. Like there's so many factors that go into it. And so we've literally just dispelled the notion or for anyone who thinks that they have to lose muscle and their performance will just drop drastically. All three of us right now are examples that doesn't have to happen to the extent you may think it does. So I think it's really cool to see, and I'm glad we touched on that. That's probably
Me
sick.
too. 100%. So I'm feeling more and more confident in the approach of separating your prep into two phases. And I think for all future competition prep clients we have over here, like I'm gonna run a similar type strategy. I just really think a lot of people are not doing this because they try to rush prep and they don't think ahead enough. They're like, I'm gonna prep 12 weeks, let's do it. Like, no, sir. So so I think and you'll see the difference on stage. Just watch. But anyways, I want to also, I'm really happy we touched on that stuff, but I want to talk more about kind of some lifestyle stuff now, because we went into the nitty gritty in terms of like that kind of stuff, fitness stuff, but like what's going on in lifestyle. And I want to see what some strategies are, if anything's changed since last podcast too. And things like, first off, like Steve, for example, as you said, sometimes you have those weeks where you got those poorly laid out shifts, in terms of like poorly laid out in terms of like a fatigue balance or fatigue management, perspective. So walk us through like what those look like, how you manage them, all that good stuff.
Well, it's good timing because I'm heading into one of those terrible weeks now. Like I work Tuesday to Friday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So if all goes well, I get off relatively close to 11 p.m. But by the time I change and I get home, it's after midnight typically, and everybody's up somewhere between 6 and 6:15 to get going. So by day 4, I'm running on, some pretty hard hours. So a week like this, I've, some of the strategy we talked about at the beginning, and even before we started this, of trying to set up my weeks. Today would normally have been a rest day for me because I worked out yesterday, but I just know that I really get I have 4 good days that I can work out: today, tomorrow morning before my first set, and then Saturday and Sunday. Those are the guaranteed days where I have time and I know I can put the effort into it. Saturday's workout is usually a little bit struggle just because it's been 4 days of interrupted sleep. Like, we're talking maybe 6 hours if I'm lucky, depending on how things are going. So it's just I run, my schedule runs at a 6-week cycle. So I know that there are 2 weeks that are harder for me to get consistent workouts, to get good workouts in. And that's this one. And then it's another one when I do 4 night shifts in a row, Monday to Thursday night. So there's so many, all those variables, and it's like, what's my day like? Is it a busy day? Is it a physical day? Is it just a long day driving around in the ambulance? And so much comes down to sleep. I'm not the best at going to bed in the first place. Like, my sleep's not the greatest anyways. So by the time I hit day 3, day 4, my energy levels are zapped. So that's, a lot of the things that I didn't prepare as well last year have really helped me. Like, while I was waiting for this, I set up the next 3 days of meals. Well, at least 2. Like, I made food. I cooked tonight, and then there's meals for the next 2 days. I got out a lot of my snacks. So in the morning, when I get up, I'm helping the kids get ready as best I can, and then half of my stuff is done. Half of my meal prep is done. So I know on Wednesday I'll get stuff ready for Thursday and Friday, but it's all the little things that I think, Munene, you mentioned earlier, like, how does this take me 30 minutes? Like, you start really figuring out what your time is worth. And I've really tried my best to minimize some of those things. So you don't realize that setting up food for the day takes about half an hour. By the time you measure a few things out, you get your snacks, certainly all the little snacks. And then just trying to figure out when I'm going to work out. Instead of going in like last year, I think I kind of went day to day, and this time around I have it set. I didn't want to work out today because I had a pretty hard workout yesterday, but I knew this was the best chance to get it. And tomorrow morning, so it was an upper day today, lower tomorrow. I just assumed that the next 3 days, 4 days are going to be tough, and then Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to hit it. So it's been a lot more calculated this go around, and it's made a difference because I don't think I balanced it as well last time between meal timing, sleep patterns, workout schedule. So I think that's made a big difference, actually having a plan and seeing you guys, doing your check-ins and your posts. And I'm like, well, I got to work out today. I can't slack this week because you guys are hitting it hard too. So
team atmosphere.
So it's been an adjustment, but it's certainly it's been a lot easier to manage this go around so far. Not perfect by any stretch, but certainly feel like I've taken a lot of the guesswork out of my weeks. And that's made it different.
Inspirational stuff, man. Steve, you're doing awesome, dude. That's inspiring. Like, being paramedic, like the unpredictability of your life schedule, and you're still just navigating this stuff and killing it, dude. Like that's inspiring. That's good stuff.
When you look week to week, you're like, I'm just barely staying afloat. But after over the course of the month, you're like, okay, I've done pretty well. You're like that.
Yeah, you pull it off.
Yeah, man.
You made it through the week, right? Made it through a month.
You plan the best you can, and then you just get her done, man. Like, don't think about it too much. You set the plan, you trust the plan, you go for it. And we have quite a few shift workers, right? And it's not easy. And but I do see the difference between the adherence is literally right up here, man. It's really it's up there. I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be done. It can be done. I think that's really, really awesome. And there might be a point where we have to almost periodize in terms of organizing your nutrition based on some of those days. Like, maybe towards the end of prep, like maybe on those really hard weeks, those are the weeks where we give you high days and run a deload or something. Like, for example, who knows? Yeah, we can play it by ear, but we might have to communicate on that and like use it when we need it. Or maybe like if we could even look at your calories on like a weekly basis and say, hey, but let's borrow a few calories from like our easy days and run those a bit lower, and then put more towards those harder days at work will give you a little bit of a bump. These are strategies that I wouldn't use with like people that are just like a normal fat loss phase or are newer to tracking. Not a good idea. But in our specific case, like, we might pull some of those strategies out,
Well, and a lot of it becomes the type of shift, right? Like tomorrow, like I said, I start at 11 and I finish at 11 p.m. One of the hardest parts of that shift, I think, other than the sleep, is I'm hungry. So by like 2 o'clock, early in my career, I'm like, by 2, 3 o'clock, I've eaten all the food I've had. like, I brought all my food and I'm done, and I still have 8 hours to go, 9 hours to go, 10 hours to go. So I just push, I've just started pushing everything back. So I know I technically start my day closer to 10:30. So, I'll start my meals differently. Whereas when I'm on days, I work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So my day starts a bit earlier, but then I have a little bit less pressure because I'll be home by 7, so I can have one last good meal if I needed it. But on 11s, if I don't time it out well, then I finish everything out by 8 p.m. and I still have 3-4 hours before I'm home, and I don't have any macro room. So I find the timing structure changes too, week to week, shift to shift. So
For sure.
we make something work.
You make it work, but it sounds like you figured it out. I trust you got it. You got it under control, and you've done it so far, so it means that you can keep doing it. Pretty much.
Hope so.
Yeah. How about you, Munene? What's going on, like lifestyle wise, balance? What have you been kind of using strategy wise to kind of keep yourself afloat and keep everything organized? Maybe anything that's different from like what you shared in the other ones.
Yeah, so it's just similar to Steve. I think we're all of us the one element that is very consistent in all of our journeys is the fact that we're balancing more than one thing. And I'm sure many people are doing that whilst on a prep. But can you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry. My Apple Watch lit up and I thought it connected. So my bad. But yeah. So the element of balancing all those things did hit me recently, where I noticed I had like a bunch of uni work done and I had to get to, and like final assignments and quizzes. Then there was a bunch of like business work I had to do, like client check-ins all in that week, and like getting a new client and onboarding them and creating programs and adjusting those. And then those two variables was once, and then I was in a prep too, and then I was like catering to people's need, like just always there trying to be a good person and listen to people, and so there was just so much input, and it just reached a point where I was like, and I was just like tunnel vision because I had to get it done. And so that week was rough, but other than that, I guess some strategies that I used to get through that is like, I need to know what my day looks like in advance. I like proper planning prevents poor performance, and if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it's like I need to know what my day looks like, meaning things that people will laugh at. Like putting my oatmeal in the bowl weighed out the night before, or putting salt in my pre-workout the night before and putting it in the fridge, or putting my phone on the sink so that when the alarm goes off, I can go there and put water on my face. It's just like little things like that, those strategies where you plan your day out in advance and you know all the pieces of the moving puzzle, what they are ahead of time, so you're not guessing. And that's something I seem to always gravitate back to when it comes to strategies. But that's the thing that I rely on. I rely on my Google Calendar. I rely on knowing exactly what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't happen to be that exact time, no stress. That's just the skeleton. It's not like if I don't have it, I'm going to like break down to the point I need it.
That's important.
It's just good to have that sense of structure and idea of what your days are going to look like. Planning your macros the night before while you're having dinner, so you're not going into the day, what am I going to eat today? No, you pre-logged for a day in advance, or 2 days in advance even, or eating the same foods. To just all that guesswork, just gone. And that's what's allowed me to really just stay on the ball. And then I guess I'm kind of spiritual, so a lot of praying and self-reflection. Yeah. Amen.
Hey, whatever works.
That's helped.
That's awesome. I think on those busy weeks, and I think this matters when you are juggling a lot of things, like, most of my days are very calculated and also relatively long. Like today, I started at 7 and it is almost 7 right now. That's a 12-hour day, right? And a very calculated, non-wasted time 12-hour day, right? However, on those weeks, what I tell myself is, are you executing or planning? So it's either there's nothing else that's fluff, right? It's either, are we executing at this given moment, or are we planning for the what's next, right? And as long as you're in those two states, you can have the comfort that you are going to get everything done that you need to. And you are also setting your future self up for good performance as well, performance or whatever you want to call it, right? So it's like, okay, right now I'm planning or I'm executing what I need to execute. And that's the only way it's going to be. And yes, we've talked about this before. People call me whatever they want to call me about being OCD or too organized or structured or too intense or whatever you want to call me. You can call me, but that's fine. But it works. It works, and I'll tell you right now, I would not get everything done that I need to get to, including workouts, including food stuff, including work, including everything, being a good partner and family member, if I wasn't as calculated as I am. So I'm fine being that. I'm fine being super calculated because it's working for me, and maybe somebody can pull off the same amount of stuff without being calculated, and it works for them, and that's fantastic. But like, we are not here to judge others for the way they live their lives, and we're not here to judge of what works for people and what doesn't. As long as they're doing what makes them happy and they're getting value and progressing in the ways they want to progress, then they're free to do whatever they want, right? So I think that's an important thing as well to kind of mention. You know?
Exactly, man. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
There's never been a problem with you being the robot, right? Like, it's you can eat the same meals every day. But like you said, like, you calculate your day and that works for you. I try to calculate a week and hope that somewhere in that week I can, things can happen. I can calculate a day off pretty well, but I can't calculate the entire day just because my daily structure isn't as controlled,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So your style, I take aspects of your style and try and put them in. I've learned a lot from you over the last couple of years and ways to try to be more calculated. But I just have to do it on a slightly different scale, right? And
100%.
it works enough for me. Like, I can't say that every day I'm going to get up at 7, have an oatmeal, look out at the sunrise for an hour, and then do that. Like, I can't have that plan the same. I just try and
100%.
go plan out for that week and say, these are the things that I need to get done in my week. When can I get them done?
Yep. You find the system works for you, and I understand. I'm very privileged, and a lot of my day is controllable. Yes, I have meetings. Yes, I still do some in-person sessions, which are the way they are. But like, I do have a lot of control over certain aspects of my day, so that is a privilege. And I can train during the day, which is a privilege, and when I want to. But guess what? Even when I was working full time and running the beginning stages of Truth Body Systems, and I had to train in the evenings, I still did it. So it's like, yep. I understand what everybody else is saying. So because I'm sure some people will say like, hey, it's easy for you to say you do whatever you want all day and you're sitting at home on your computer. But like, I did the same stuff you guys are like have to do too. Like, I would pull those really long days at work and a 2-hour commute, and then still have to do client work and go to the gym and finish my day at 11 and then get up at 6:30. Like, I've done that as well. So it's like, I understand it is not easy. So I'm not telling you it's easy, but I'm telling you it can be done with a little bit of fortitude and calculated effort. And then over time, even if you feel lonely in that kind of lifestyle, which I'm sure everybody does, if they're really in that hustle mode, with whether they're working on fitness goals super hardcore or some side project or work or whatever, it can be lonely. But like, your support system just funnels in, man. Like, look at this now. It's like cool. Just so we have this like support network, and to be doing this as a team, as we were saying before, like, that's super, super powerful. I'm not here talking to myself on my podcast. I got 2 absolute killers that are like in their own zone, work on their stuff. But like, at the end of the day, I know that when I go to sleep, they're also working. So I better the next day wake up and put in the work as well, right?
Exactly. Like I said, anytime that I think I'm going to slack, and I'm like, Munene posts another picture of how amazing his physique is, and then Parris goes, "Yeah, well, look at mine," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I got to put this cookie down and get to the gym." Like,
nah, you're doing awesome, bro. You're crushing it, Steve. You're crushing it, bro.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being calculated, man. It's nothing wrong. If anything, that's what leads to progress. If you have things that are very solidified and in place, and you eliminate guesswork and you don't freestyle, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people thrive on unpredictability. They love not having a schedule, and they're extremely successful at what they do or the way their life, the outcomes they achieve. But that's not for everyone. That's okay, right? But if you find what works for you, and it doesn't matter if people think you're a robot, you just do what you do, because at the end of the day, you know why you're doing it. You know it works. You know it helps you operate at the level you want to operate at, so you're going to adhere to it. And if that leads to adherence, then that leads to adherence. And adherence leads to progress. So whatever leads to adherence, just keep doing it, man. I'm the
Yeah,
exact
man.
same. I like to know what I'm doing, when I'm doing it. Have this food this week. Like, people may think it's weird, similar to Paris, but it works and you like it and it helps you do
Yep.
everything you need to do. So why not, right? Why
100%,
not?
man. It's
You're
so
not doing this
fun.
journey for anyone else. You're doing it for yourself.
That's it. And I'm doing this for the whole, you guys and everybody else as well. But yeah, I would do it for
Yeah,
myself.
exactly.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because talking about how I'm like a robot and everything, and like I view people probably think like I'm more intense and that kind of stuff. But then like with Tara, we were laughing at it because with her I'm like super soft and like pretty much a teddy bear. So we were laughing the other day because we're hanging out and I guess my more like teddy bear type mode came out and her friend's like, what was with Parris that day? Like, was everything okay? And Tara's like, that's just how he is. Like, she's like, really? He's like that, like soft and whatever. Is like, yeah, different context, man. Like, I can go from being super, super intense and like send it in everything I want to work wise or workout wise, and then go and be like an absolute teddy bear with Tara after like, or whatever. I curl up with my dog and my mom's dog, which is also technically my dog, and like hang out, and have a good snuggle session. So it's like you can be both, is what I'm trying to say. You can be both. Yeah.
And especially if you got everything else organized, then yeah, you can do whatever you want, right? Like,
yeah,
whatever gets you through the day, through the week, through the month, whatever you need to do to be happy with whatever, with your progress or whatever. We're on a specific plan, so we know until shows in your case are done, there's a general plan that needs to be adhered to, but it doesn't mean you can't, it doesn't mean there's no wiggle room. We talked about it earlier, right? Like, there's a calorie range, right? There's ranges, and if you need to, yeah, okay, for the next month, we got to dial it in. But and I think you were doing, you were doing Paris, you were doing 5 low days and 2 high days, right? Like, there's room for movement. There's room in the schedule. So maybe you didn't get, maybe today a client meetings took longer, or maybe something didn't quite plan out, or you get sick. Like, you got to be able to adjust that based on everything else. So if you're flexible, but you've got everything, you've got 90% of your organization all sorted out, then yeah, you know what? It gives you that allowance for things to not quite pan out, or to be a little more flexible, or to be the big teddy bear that not everybody gets to see.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's super awesome, guys. I don't want to take too much more of your time because I realize we're coming up to probably close to an hour now. So let's close out with some final thoughts here. So kind of just setting the stage like mentally for what you want to get out of the next, I guess, month, because we're doing these monthly. So the next month, most of the time will be spent in maintenance calories. Like, is there anything that you're going to shift in terms of your equilibrium in your life or anything, or in terms of like how you operate in this phase, or like a perspective on this next little phase? Like, what are you hoping to get out of this next month here?
Well, I don't want to get out of the routine. That's one thing. We've worked hard to get into a routine, and we just spent some time talking about what our routines look like, and mine's a little bit different than yours, but I'm in a good spot, right? Having a diet break is great, and I still have one more week before I can enjoy that, but I just want to enjoy the next month, right? Like, it'd be great to put a couple extra reps in the workouts, get a little bit more energy through my workouts again. Like, the last podcast I talked about really wanting to not get that negative mindset that Munene, you were talking about. Like, just because we're in fat loss doesn't mean we have to have lower results, right? So I really pushed hard in the first 3 weeks there in the month. So I want to do that again. I want to kind of take this reset, take a couple extra calories, a little bit less stress on the system, and just put some numbers back up, right? Just get that extra rep out. I'm not expecting big changes, but I'm hoping for some small ones anyways.
That's
Love
good,
it.
Steve.
Munene,
Awesome stuff, man.
where's your head at?
Yeah, funny enough, it's I think often at times we expect like sometimes new things to happen, or like changes, but literally just do the exact same thing plus some. So I just want to keep doing what I'm doing now, and just continue doing that, the mundane routine, because that's working. I'm happy. So I just want to keep doing what I'm doing now. And then with the extra food, just the concept of energy planning. So assessing the extra energy you have and where you can schedule that in based on your calendar. So allotting tasks based on how I'm feeling, knowing I have more energy in my system, and then allotting a little bit more on like within my day-to-day that I could perhaps not do in a deficit or wouldn't want to do. So leveraging the fact that I have more food to my advantage. And yeah, that's it.
I love it. The thing I try to get people to the place with is to have less disparity between your fat loss, maintenance, or building phases. So over time, they all become very similar in terms of how your lifestyle looks. Because when some people sometimes are like, okay, I'm bulking and then cutting, and cutting is like way different lifestyle. Their food changes completely, their meal timing changes completely, their training is all of a sudden super different, and like their lifestyle is like they're saying no to everything. And like you have to be able to keep things very similar. And the whole reason why everything has been so smooth in this fat loss is because my building phase was very similar in terms of how I operate my day-to-day. I'm just more precise, eating less food, and maybe my recovery variables are on point, and I'm not drinking and things like that, I guess. But like, apart from that, like the way I operate my day is extremely similar. So that's the kind of the theme I think you guys were both touching on. It's like, don't think of it as a completely different phase. Like, yes, you're at maintenance, but like all you're doing is getting a few hundred extra calories. Okay.
Literally.
Everything else stays the same. Great.
Exactly.
Just add a little bit more potatoes and Cheerios to your meals. Like, awesome. You know, you have an extra banana here and there. Like, don't perceive it as different. Everything else is the same, and enjoy every freaking phase, because this prep has continued to just fly by, and it will still continue to fly by. So it's just like, soak it up, man. Like, soak it up. And we're going to watch these podcasts one day in like years and be like, wow, you remember that? Do you remember when we did that? And
52 years old.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's like, it's just enjoying this, man. Enjoy the awesome days, enjoy the tougher days. It's just live in the moment and just enjoy everything, man. Yeah.
Send it.
Yeah, exactly.
And send it and enjoy it. Awesome, guys. I think we should close out there just for like timing wise, unless there's any final points that you want to communicate. Anything?
I think that's a great way to finish off. Great message. Just keep it. It's the lifestyle, right? It's, you change things too drastically, whether it's a diet, whether it's an exercise plan, and you're not gonna stick with it. If it becomes a lifestyle, then yeah, you can add an extra bowl of Cheerios or take one away, and nothing else really changes. So,
yeah, bud. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Eh? I agree with that. Eh? Final thoughts. Eh? You're right there. Eh?
And at that, we'll leave it off. And again, to anybody who listened all the way through, we love you. We appreciate you. And yeah, obviously we're here if you guys need any support in your fitness journey or whatever you need support in, we're here. All right. We'll close it out and we'll see you next time.
Oh yeah.